Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Annapolis Board of Appeals regular meeting for March 5th, 2024. This meeting is being broadcast on the City of Annapolis YouTube channel. This is our first post-pandemic in-person meeting, so we will proceed much as we did in the pre-pandemic times, but with a couple of changes that I'll note. One is that if a second or special meeting is required in any particular month, that special meeting will be held in the virtual format rather than in person. Another change is that anyone wishing to make oral comments at the meeting is now required to sign up through the comment sheet on the City of Annapolis website by noon on the day of the hearing. The comment sheet is also the means by which written comments are submitted to the board. The board urges the submission of written comments rather than oral comments because written comments give the members of the board more time to give them the careful consideration they deserve. As always, oral comments should be brief and limited to the applicable criteria for the case before the board. The agenda for tonight's meeting may be found on the City of Annapolis website. The agenda contains links to the City of Annapolis YouTube channel, the comment form where you can sign up or send in written comments, and the city's database for information about the cases that will be before the board this evening. Any written comments received by noon today in matters before the board this evening have been made part of the record and provided to the board and the parties. Let me remind everyone that communications with the board about any case by anyone other than a party to the case must go through the comment form. All communications by parties must go to the board, must go through our board liaison, Kim Consoli, in the Department of Planning and Zoning. No one should contact any member of the board directly about any case that's before the board. So with that, we'll ask Ms. Consoli to call the roll.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Zazali?
Yes.
Mr. Hector?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we're not expecting Mr. Walsh or Dr. Chen. We have 3 present.
So that's a quorum. Thank you very much. Have the members of the board had a chance to review the agenda? And are there any changes or additions?
With the one exception of the first variance has been stricken from the agenda, proposed to accept as submitted.
I concur.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see. We have the minutes of November 7th of last year, which was our last meeting.
It's December 5th.
I'm sorry, December 5th. Do we have corrections or additions to the minutes? Yeah. Is there a motion to accept?
I motion we accept as is.
Is there a second?
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimously approved. Thank you. Now we come to our annual election of officers for the board, which was supposed to take place in January, but we didn't have a meeting in January, so we'll turn to it tonight. Do we have any nominations for chair?
I nominate Bob Gallagher.
Is there a second to the nomination?
I second.
Are there any other nominations? Mr. Zazali, would you take over as chair for purposes of a vote on that
I will be happy to.
issue?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve Mr. Gallagher as chair?
I motion that he is approved as chair.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The vote is unanimous, 3-0.
Thank you very much.
I turn the chairmanship back over to the newly appointed chair.
Are there any nominations for vice chair? I would offer the nomination of Mr. Zazali, who's done such an able job for many years. Is there a second?
I second.
Any other nominations for vice chair? No? Any discussion? All right, is there a motion to?
I motion that Mr. Zazali be vice chair.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Congratulations. You haven't been fired. All right, now we turn to approval of the draft annual report for 2023. I think you've all had a chance to look at that more than once, I think. Is there a motion to approve the draft annual report?
A motion we approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that's unanimous. All right, moving right along. We have extension request for a special exception. Mr. Dales, would you like to join us at the table? This is a special exception 2022-002, special exception application to establish a 9-room inn at 86 State Circle. You all will recall that in order to grant such a request, it has to be timely, and as the first request for an extension has to demonstrate that the applicants worked diligently to get the project underway. Mr. Dales has submitted a timely request and asserted that they've been working diligently with staff to get through the permitting process, but some work remains to be done. You may or may not be aware that this request was submitted back in December, was it? Or January? That it was timely in any case. And because it was the only item on the agenda, would have been the only item on the agenda for that meeting, I asked Mr. Dale's forbearance to put it off to the next meeting, which he kindly granted, on the understanding that when these cases have come up before and we've granted special exceptions, they've been granted effective as of the date of the expiration of the original special exception. So, any questions for Mr. Dales?
No.
No questions? All right, then, is there a motion to approve the special exception? Effective as of the expiration date of the,
A motion we approve it.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Dales. That was
Thank
an
you, Mr.
eloquent
Chairman.
job. You did.
It's the best I've done all year.
Thank you for your
I assume you'll
forbearance.
bill accordingly.
No.
Okay. The first item on the old agenda has been stricken, 2319. That's always good news. So we'll take up special exception 2024-01, special exception application by 121 Main LLC property owner and Cigar Group LLC applicant to allow a cigar lounge as an accessory use within an existing tobacco shop known as Vitola at 121 Main Street. Who would like to introduce this for the city? Would that be you, Kim?
That's me, Kim Burke. This is as you said, is the application for a special exception for a cigar lounge to the existing tobacco shop, which is allowed by special exception. The property was posted for the required amount of time. We received no public comments. And the city is recommending approval with the conditions noted in the staff report.
Can you tell me what the conditions require in, with respect to the
smoke?
The smoke that will be emitted from the building?
Right, so there, one of the conditions is there's going to have to be a new separate ventilation system for the second floor. That's noted on their existing use permit also. It's my understanding from talking to the mechanical inspector for the city that each smoking area needs a separate enclosed area with separate ventilation, and it must vent outside, and there can be no recirculating air within the building.
Is there anything required that will mitigate the odors that directly exhausted air would send into the neighborhood?
Yeah, so he was going to go and do an inspection to see where the ventilation is currently, because it could possibly be where the existing system is venting out, could possibly be venting directly onto the neighboring building. And if that's the case, then hopefully with this remodel, they can vent the existing system in another location, and then when they put the new system in, it will be able to be vented properly, not towards the neighboring building.
Have there been any public comments on this one?
There have been no public comments.
And you're satisfied that the notice and posting requirements have been met?
Yes.
All right, would the applicant like to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As always, we are respectful of your time, and we trust that you've read the staff report, our application statement, and seen the drawings that were submitted with the application statement. We appreciate the staff's recommendation of approval. We understand the conditions, and we're accepting of the conditions in the staff report recommendation. I did want to offer some brief testimony into the record for questions from two of the owners of Vitola who would like to be heard tonight. If we'd like to swear them in now, we could do that, or we could do it as each answers questions.
Sure. Does each of you acknowledge under penalty of perjury that the evidence you'll give this evening will be true to the best of your knowledge? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my first set of questions are
And please, if you can, address this air filtration issue.
I think that we will address that in the course of our testimony here. If there are any extra questions afterwards, we'll be ready to answer any specific questions. So, Mr. Shelton Willett, could you give your name and address for the record, please?
Shelton Willett, 1202 Bay Highlands Drive, Annapolis, Maryland.
I'm
214.
sorry, can you turn your mic on, please, and speak into it?
Oh, okay. Shelton Willett, 1202 Bay Highlands Drive, Annapolis, Maryland, 21403.
And Mr. Willett, you're an owner of the applicant entity, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And could you briefly just give the board a history of your experience in the cigar industry and with this specific shop?
Okay. In the cigar industry, I'm what is called a certified sommelier tobacconist. I pair alcohol, coffee, and tobaccos together to make a balanced experience. So people would come from different places to get the expertise on what should go with what, depending on what it is that they purchase by region, both by region, by what is your favorite, and then we pair that to a different region just to create balance, sort of like a wine sommelier for food in the restaurant industry. There's only one in the state of Maryland, which is me, that has a cigar shop. So it's very important for a lot of people to take that expertise when they come into Annapolis and pick out their selections.
So as the board knows, this is a somewhat unique special exception in that it's for an accessory use. This is for a cigar lounge accessory use that is part of the existing tobacco shop to be converted into that cigar lounge. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is this accessory use portion of the tobacco shop. So getting right to the point, Mr. Willett, can you tell us in your own words what you envision for the use of that space and the physical renovation, and how you envision your customers and members using that space?
Yeah. Well, the point is to create a upscale environment, more traditional as the early stages of the cigar industry, where it was just a basic have a seat and have your drink that goes with the tobacco that you choose. As traditional as possible, that is our goal, to just have a traditional setting that is nice for you to enjoy your cigars and your alcohol.
And for this pairing counter that we've labeled on the plans, can you just describe that? It's not a very big space. It's fairly modest. Is that correct?
Right. It's just where the selections are so that we can choose what will go with your purchase. So if you chose a Dominican cigar, we may have preferences from Dominican Republic, but it would just be an assortment of those spirits that would go with what it is that we have in stock.
And then the surrounding lounge areas where people would take what you've paired for them and enjoy that cigar and whatever you've paired for them.
Right,
correct?
right.
Thank you. Okay, so can you tell us just elsewhere in the cigar industry, is this now a common expectation for customers of tobacco shops?
Yes. So especially in the winter times, where the money is not as flowing as it generally is, you will pick the part that you can get the more bang for your dollar. So most of the lounges or cigar shops that do not have alcohol have been going out of business rapidly. Each year, 2 have gone out of business, so they cannot sustain without that little additional. It's not so much of the revenue as it is the choice that the customer will come to this one or will they go to this one, based on them being able to do all of the things that they would like to do.
As that experience has become more the expectation globally, could you tell us a little bit about how you see that as necessary and fitting into Annapolis and in this specific location on Main Street?
Yeah, outside of the state, that is traditional. There's some cigar companies that will not sell you their cigars if you do not have a liquor license, like Davidoff and things of a high end, which we try to present the high end. So it is part of the culture, and we like to be a part of it.
And you've mentioned this location has a special connection to Maryland history, Maryland culture, to be able to bring that tobacco culture to Main Street. Is that right?
Yes, it's important. So I grew up on a tobacco farm in Maryland. Maryland is very important in the tobacco industry, the whole history of it. So being in the capital, it would just be so great for us to be able to present that in the capital of the state, one of the biggest states known for tobacco and the culture. People really take our word for what it is in tobacco, being from this place, being a person that actually raised tobacco as a kid. So.
And that touches on why we think this fits in so well in the location you've chosen. But I think this question is really what the board might be most interested in here. It's just to give me a little detail on how you plan to mitigate any potential impacts on the public or neighboring properties. And in particular, if you could first talk about how you manage the shop, the client base that visits the shop, and then specifically how you'd build this out physically and operate your business to mitigate noise and smells.
Yeah, well, we present ourselves as a luxury cigar retailer. So our client base is very upscale. Usually 40 to 70 is our general range of clientele who they tend to say we want to go where the adults are, especially when we're on Main Street. It could get a little different after 9 o'clock. So it's a place where it's more relaxed. It's more gentlemen and ladies who want to have that experience and still be downtown. They'll go to their dinners and then they'll come and see us at the end, or they'll see us and then go to their dinners at the end. Usually I dress like this every day to represent our shop, and that's how we set the tone for how we.
Well, and specifically the lounge area that we're asking for tonight is going to be a small members-only access area. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And then finally, I know Mr. Birch here is going to be our expert on the ventilation issue, but just could you prime the subject for him? Just what's the plan for ventilating this space generally that Mr. Birch can then address in detail? Actually, no, let's just have Mr. Birch get right into it. I guess we might want to swear Mr. Birch, give your name and address for the record.
So, name is William Birch. Address is 670 Americana Drive. That's Annapolis, Maryland, 21403.
Okay, and Mr. Birch, could you just talk the board through the details of the existing ventilation system that I know you invested a lot in,
Yep.
the recent changes that have been made to it in working with your direct neighbor, and then how you're going to modify the upstairs space or use the existing ventilation system to ventilate this new space?
Okay. Yeah, so not to get too far in the weeds with it, basically there was no ventilation in the building when we got there. There was only recirculating ventilation. I know, like everybody else knows, recirculating ventilation does not work properly. It just thins everything out. It doesn't get rid of it. So we installed the ventilation in the system in the first floor to, there is a 5-filter ventilation system in there. And it is also another furnace that brings fresh air back into the building. So every CFM that goes out, there's some that comes in. And so we match it equally so the airflow of the building changes rapidly over each hour. And that way you get the maximum amount of cigar smoke and carcinogens and all that stuff out of the building and out from the lounge, which is why when you leave the lounge, your clothes, your hair, and everything doesn't smell like smoke. We plan to do the same exact thing upstairs, the same exact unit, going out the same path. Previously, Phil mentioned about our neighbors. They did get a complaint that they could smell the smoke coming out of the building. I purposely had the HVAC system piped up out of the top of the building and above the roof that's next to us so it wouldn't blow onto the building. But they were still having a little bit of an issue. They could still smell it. So what I did was put in a charcoal filter inside of the ventilation system, and that seemed to have cleared the smell as much as possible. So that was part of what we did to mitigate the smell was coming out of the building. So once we put the other system in, there's charcoal filters that go in those systems as well. They're all 5 filter systems. There's a pre-filter, bag filter, there's a one that's up to almost like 100 and some microns, and then there's a charcoal filter at the end taking down the smell. And that's basically how the system works. Everything is recirculated and then taken out of the building. So you're not getting, the problem with the smoke in buildings and cigar lounges that don't have ventilation is the smoke settles. So you get that smell on everything and everybody. And also, obviously, it's not good to inhale inside secondhand smoke inside of a lounge, just packed with smoke like that.
And so you understand also that after this recent improvement and your efforts to address these concerns your neighbors had, you'll be working with the city building a permit review as you work towards building permit and the Department of Public Works on what you're doing to ventilate the new space and tie into this system you've described. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So basically, we created drawings. We created drawings for both levels. And I believe you had those drawings inside your documentation. But that drawing shows the space where the pairing counter is going to be. I'm going to go into detail and do everything, get permits to do what we need to do as far as construction-wise. We may need some very light construction, some very light mechanical work for the ventilation system, and then some electric for the pairing area.
And for the record, one of the conditions of approval is that the applicant work to attain a certain standard of ventilation in the development of the new space, and we understand that. So, Mr. Birch, I understand you also worked as the GC for the existing build out of the existing shop, and that you'll do that again for the conversion of the interior renovation of this second floor space. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So I know the board has reviewed the drawings, and so we're not going to describe them through testimony, but if you have any questions about the drawings or about the ventilation, Mr. Birch will be here after we finish presenting to answer those questions. So just coming back to Mr. Willett, just what are your hours for the shop now?
It is Sunday through Wednesday, 11 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 11 o'clock until midnight.
And this new space is envisioned for that full time, but you expect much more heavily used after the 5 p.m. hour. And I think that the board's going to want to hear about that. I raised the question and asked Mr. Willett that question because the occupants of the neighboring building are generally there mostly between the working hours of 9 to 5. And this new space will likely be used after those, correct?
Right. Mostly in the daytime is mostly retail. And then in the evening time is when folks have dinner and get into their nighttime activities where they want to have after dinner or before dinner. So generally we are not, it is not very smoke heavy in the daytime, only on the after 5 and the weekends.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, the day part is more retail service.
And currently during that use of the first and second floor of the shop, the second floor existing tobacco shop is already used for an overflow customer area at times and for owner and investor meetings, correct?
Correct.
And so you might say that what limited amount of smoking is a part of those activities isn't subject to the ventilation system that you will be installing, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And so although there may be a bit more smoking in that second floor space than there is now, it will be now ventilated and put through the system Mr. Birch described and the filters he's described, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, now, Mr. Willett, Mr. Birch, is there anything else that either of you'd like to add before we close and ask the board if they have questions for you?
I think I'm okay with the questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's our case.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
I just have one sort of a comment, open, trying to address from a more technical aspect.
Yeah,
My
please.
expertise, the Maryland State Code and International ASHRAE Code 2018 identifies cigar bar as a specific use group. And within that class of use group, there is minimum ventilation standards. And the conditions require, by reference, to comply with cigar bar as a use group. So my question would be back to the city. During review of the permit, the city has the expertise to use the Maryland State Code and table 4033-1.1 to determine the adequacy of the ventilation and so on and so forth. There it is. Very good. So that would be,
And so, Christian, that the ventilation standard you're talking about is not just,
talks about exhaust and particulates.
Okay,
And it
good.
addresses both indoor air quality and the minimum filtration for the
does the
exhaust.
standard require maintenance of the system?
The code does not speak to maintenance. That is a landlord's responsibility. I don't know that any code, I don't know of any code,
Okay, okay.
right, like fire department, I could speak to that in some way, but that's the only code enforcement that I'm aware of, that the municipality and food service, right? I don't know about air ventilation.
Right, when I spoke to the mechanical inspector, he said that if there was a complaint about smoke, it would be, I guess, filed under a nuisance complaint, and then he could go inspect, I guess, the airflow at that point.
Mr. Hector, any questions for you?
Yeah, I have one from Mr. Burt.
You're a cigar expert, aren't you?
Yes, sir. My favorite cigars are outdoor. In reference to your filtration system, the charcoal filters that you mentioned, are they compared to a HEPA filter?
No, I don't think they're, the filters are in there, there's 5 filters in the filtration system.
Yes, 5 stages.
Right, so the charcoal is the last stage.
Okay.
And it's just that's after all the particulates are already caught, everything is going through, and before it hits the exhaust duct, it goes through that charcoal filter to mitigate smells.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm
And then
not
do you-
100%, but I don't think it's compared to.
Is there a schedule for changing those filters?
Yeah, it really depends on usage.
Okay.
So for us, it's about every 30 to 45 days
Yeah, correct.
on particular filters. So every filter doesn't get changed every time.
Okay.
Obviously, the pre-filter gets changed more than everything. That's every 30 days. It has a bag filter in it. That's about 3 feet square. That bag filter gets changed every 6 to 8 months. There's another pre-filter before the charcoal, and that one gets changed on that same schedule, and then the charcoal gets changed every year or so.
Okay. Thank you.
So the condition that addresses this that's been proposed by the city, condition 10, installation of a ventilation system for the second floor comply with blah, blah, blah. Would you have any problem if that condition read installation and maintenance of?
Yeah.
No, Mr. Chairman, that'd be
Can we
acceptable.
make that change, Kim?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for the applicants?
No.
All right. So the application with its exhibits and the staff report with its exhibits will be admitted in the record. We will close the record on the hearing at this point, and we'll get to deliberations fairly shortly.
May I ask the chairman for a 1-minute break? I just got to take this call
Yeah,
from the hospital.
Sure, we'll recess for 2 minutes. We'll resume our meeting at this point after a short recess. The next item on the agenda is variance 2023-018, variance application by Stephen McBride, property owner, for a reduction to the required rear yard setback to allow construction of an expansion of the existing dwelling on property located at 1106 Van Buren Street. Ask the city to tell us what you'd like us to know.
Yes, good evening, board members. Mike Meekins with Planning and Zoning, obviously. The applicant is requesting a variance to the rear yard setback of 30 feet to enlarge a portion of the existing dwelling and to put on a second story of the dwelling. The current structure is non-conforming in setback. It's currently at 12 feet from the rear property line. Basically, if you applied the zoning setbacks to the dwelling, if you applied the rear setback and the front setback, you would only be allowed to, excuse me, construct a 5-foot deep dwelling. So basically, the dwelling itself was built prior to the zoning code on or about 1950, and of course, the zoning code was instituted in 1970. So with that in mind, the property was posted for 15 days. Planning and Zoning received no public comments, and Planning and Zoning is in support of approving this proposal with the condition that the applicant goes through the building permit process.
That would be a good idea.
I would think so too.
All right, gentlemen, would you, do you both have something to tell us tonight?
I mean, you pretty well presented it, and it's really what we're doing. I'm actually the builder and the designer.
Excuse me, can you turn your microphone on?
Yep. Got a green
Is that
light?
better?
Just-
Okay.
All right, so give us your name.
Raphael Cassignon, Home Pro Design Build.
And do you affirm that, subject to the penalties for perjury, the evidence you'll give tonight is the truth,
Yes.
to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So anyway, we are representing the owners. It's an expanding family. Their house is basically functionally very hard to navigate a home the way they currently have it. It's a Cape Cod, and they have a second level with basically no headroom. The real addition to the house is on the second level, which is creating additional space by expanding the walls to the outer parts. And on the first level, we're adding to the kitchen, and we're also adding to the front of the home on the east side, an additional 3 feet by 10 feet for the living room. And what's crucial about that is it's within the setbacks, and it's also not creating any sight issues as far as vehicles driving, or there's no issue as far as sight distance and so on. And basically, it's a plan to make the house livable at this point for them.
So is it correct that the expansion on the first floor will not result in an incursion into the setback area greater than the one that's already there?
Correct. I'm correct in saying that, right? Yes, okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No?
Mr. Hector?
No, sir.
Mr. Zazali?
Nope, straightforward presentation.
Looks straightforward to me as well. Okay. So we have heard nothing from the public. So we'll close the hearing record, admitting the application with its exhibits and the staff report with its exhibits. And we'll turn now to deliberations, and you should have a vote on your application in just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Right, so we'll begin deliberations with special exception 2024-01, Cigar Lounge. Any thoughts on that?
Are you addressing that to me specifically?
Well,
No thoughts.
you're the cigar expert.
As long as they comply with the filtration system, I have no problem.
Yeah.
I am a member of a cigar bar in Baltimore called Lollipop. Go there quite often. And it's in a residential area in Baltimore, Fells Point, and I have never heard any complaints.
It's a use that is permitted with a special exception, and they appear to have complied and take no issue with your adjustment to the requirements. So,
When I first saw this, I thought, we've banned indoor smoking statewide, but there's an exception for this.
Yeah.
But then the criteria we're looking at tonight talk about detrimental to public health and injurious to the neighbors. But I guess the state's already decided how they want to deal
The code
with
isn't
it.
perfect, Bob.
Yeah, right. All right, is there a motion?
I motion to approve.
I second for reasons stated in the testimony and evidence presented in the application, and with the modification to the one
Condition 10.
condition within the
Yeah.
within the report.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. And then we turn to 2023-018, 1106 Van Buren.
This is the poster child for this board.
Yeah.
This is a property that was laid out, developed, and lived in for the last 75 to 100 years. Current owner wishes to improve it and is doing so, in my opinion, in a very responsible and elegant way, but for the setbacks that were established after the house was built on property that existed before it was built. So there, in my opinion, there's no basis for consideration other than approval.
I second.
I'm very sympathetic. I had exactly the same situation when I moved to Annapolis. All I wanted to do was expand the second floor, but I had to comply with current setbacks without a variance, and it would have let me have a slice of a house that you could reach out and touch the walls. It's regrettable that the rules are there that require you to spend the money to go through this process, but those are the rules that we have to deal with. So thank you for your patience.
Have we had a vote? No.
We're going to vote, yeah.
We did vote on it?
All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
Aye. You have your variance. Thank you.
I too had to get three-sided variants for my addition. Front, rear, and side.
All right, is there any other business to come before the board tonight?
None?
No one dares? Good. I assume we'll have a meeting in April? You've got,
One thing, hopefully in April.
okay, good.
I don't have anything yet, but,
And is that complicated, or?
No, it's a tear down, rebuild house.
Sounds hard.
Well, no, it's just they're moving. It's on the waterfront, so it's a steep slope variance, but they're not encroaching any further towards the water, so it shouldn't. It's something that we would support.
And you'll encourage them to go beyond what's needed to
Yes, there's been many
stormwater.
revisions. This has been a work in progress.
Great, all right.
We are absolutely not having a second meeting in March.
No.
No second meeting in March. So we'll meet again in April. That'll be April, what would that be? April 2nd. At least it won't be April 1st.
Get it over with quick.
Is there another motion that anyone would like to make?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, council.